Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Caseware webinar. Thanks for joining us. As you can see, we are going to be covering Cloud Audit top tips today. This is a webinar that will last up to 45 minutes. And Anthony Launchbury, our Senior Education and Media Consultant, will be taking you through the content. My name's Tom Jeffrey. I'm one of the Education and Media Technicians at Caseware UK, and I'll be making sure the session runs smoothly and monitoring your questions, that kind of thing. Talking of questions, we'll just jump to a housekeeping slide. So if you want to submit a question, you can use the Q&A option there, and hopefully you can see that on the GIF that we've got on the slide. So use the Q&A button, submit your question, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. If we're not able to answer the question live, don't worry, we'll get back to you after the session. We'll also include it in a Q&A document that will be distributed to you in the next few days. That will also accompany the recording of the session. So we are recording. Those will be published to our knowledge base and our help site in the next couple of days. We'll also put the recording on our YouTube channel. So that's the housekeeping out of the way. I'll hand over to Tony. Hi, Tony, and we'll get started.
Hi, Tom. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to join us for the webinar. Let's move on to the agenda slide. Before we get going, I just want to say thank you for some of the questions we received in advance of the webinar. Unfortunately, I don't think we're going to have the time today to cover everything, but we will definitely get answers back to you on the other points as well that we don't cover within today's session. These are the four main areas we're going to be looking at. Okay, so it's all about, again, gaining efficiencies within our files and kind of get a bit more value from certain elements of it. So the source engagement option was provided a few months back. Hopefully everyone's seen that when they go to create new files now, and if you haven't, you're going to see it today. And I'm actually going to work through the use cases of what benefits you're going to get from using it. And then that's going to be the same approach as we work through looking at data, sampling plans, and also this what's new section. Included within what's new, we're going to be looking at these areas. Okay, so sorry, I've got a bit of croaky voice. Hopefully that stops. And if not, I'll get a drink of water. So yeah, these are the areas we're going to be starting looking at. Now, there was a couple of updates recently in our templates, and I've had a few clients asking me questions about these updates, when the notifications are, and so on. What you're going to see is that within the template now, there's actually in-app guidance, and we're using an application called Pendo to be able to provide you release notes, documentation, and all these new areas that have been built in. That also covers the compliance changes for things like ISO 600 and so on. So this little icon that you're going to see, and it's going to be down in the bottom right-hand side of any of your audit engagements or disclosure checklists that you're working with, will have relevant help insights relating to the areas you're looking at. So if you're looking at company audit, you're going to get guidance on company audit. So hopefully you're going to start benefiting from that in-app help. It does need to be expanded. It's very early days, but it's definitely going to steer you in the right direction on these bits of content. Depending on what time we get today, hopefully I'll cover most of these, but I'll definitely be covering the new partner manager summary, the PMSD, looking at some things like bulk actions as well, because I know that was related to one of the questions that we got pre-submitted, which is fantastic. But we'll also be looking at review tools as well. New sign-off functionality, audit response tables. If I don't get time to cover those today, I will point you in the direction of where the release notes are. Okay. All right, so first things first then, creating a file from a source engagement. Now, this was added in for multiple reasons. I think, first of all, there's the user cases that we can put to it quite quickly and easily with things like Academy audit preparation. You will get the content, well, we get the content from Mercia. We then develop the template to include all that content. There's actually a lot you can do in those files from a setup perspective that will be related to all academies. So what this utility will allow you to do now is to take our template, build in certain responses, additional checklists, additional tailoring that you may want in every single academy, and use that as the basis for those files, which is going to save you a lot of duplication and hopefully gain some recoverability within those audit files as well. So let's first take a look at that. So bear with me whilst I just open up a Internet Explorer. There we go. So let me share my screen. So you should hopefully now see my Caseware Cloud pop up. Now, I'm working on a server, which is it's a mid-tier server. So it's not development, but it's not a client server. So we may see some things pop up on this as we go through, just as a bit of a caveat here for those areas. because our developers are always working. So you may see a few areas that you may not be familiar with, or maybe a problem that because they're developing. So with this in mind, then what we're going to do is I'm going to go to my applications. Okay, so one of the changes that hopefully you've all picked up on is that Caseware changed the name of the template. So company audit now starts off with audits. The list is alphabetical, so the product team are trying to make these lists a little bit easier for you to navigate through. Okay, so if you're looking for your company audit, it's no longer going to be down here. It's going to be right at the top of the list. As soon as there's updates for all the other audit templates as well, you'll see all the other audit templates moving up to the top of the list. Okay. I'm going to be looking at the company audit template. This is where a lot of the changes were in. I've got a couple of part built files for us as well, so we can dive into those. The first thing here really is let's look at that source engagement file, how to use that. So for anyone who hasn't seen this, the options available from when we select new, you can go through and say, okay, well, we want to create a brand new file for a client. So in this case, ABC Motor Company, and we want to use this webinar file 2 as the starting point. Now, I'm just going to open the file just so you can see what's in there. Let me load that back in. This is kind of a part built file. There's lots of documents already completed. The tailoring is already being set up, and as you can see, a few sign-offs throughout, a few custom schedules. If we look down in the work programs again, there's PDFs, Excel sheets, and so on. Okay. So what this function is going to copy over is it's going to copy over all my Excel documents, all my external documents. So by external document, anything that's not a Caseware document, effectively. Okay. What it's also going to do is it's going to take in all the tailoring of these schedules. So if I look through the work program, all these procedures that I've designed for analytical procedures and test of detail, these are all going to be pulled through as well, together with linkages for risks, because the risks will also pull through as well. So again, you can probably see the advantages there for that academy scenario where we've got a consistent setup. There's obviously going to be other types of industries that's also going to be very useful for. So hopefully you'll get some real value from this. Now, what won't pull through will be sign-offs. So these sign-offs down here are where you can see the risks have been signed off. If I go back into the work program, you'll see that my face and pictures down the side of these saying that I signed these off. Well, they won't be copied over. The response will be, and the expansion of any work that we've done will, but the sign-off won't be. Additionally, what you will not see be pulled through to the file will be the trial balance. Okay, so the chart of accounts and trial balance will not pull through this feature. So let's go through and give that a go. Let's go back and let's say, let's just call this source file again. Source file. And nice example. There we go. And let's select our entity. Now, I am going to select the same entity, ABC Motor Company, because that's where the file is created in. But you can select any entity that's in your system. Okay. If you were going to use that Academy example, then what I would do is I would suggest you create another entity called the Academy template or your firm's Academy template, and you create your audit engagement that you want to use as a base file in there. Okay. Now, once you select the entity, you can then go through and select any of the files and complete the other information following your own firm standards and click on save. Now, this does take a moment, a little bit longer than just creating a file from scratch. So as you imagine, it's copying over all the documentation. It's also copying over responses, annotations, and risks and bits and pieces. So it's clearly doing a lot more, isn't it? So when it's spinning around at the start, think of all that time saving you're going to get from those documents and the tailoring in the files from using the utility. So just as a quick recap then, whilst that's building, TB won't come through. That means nominal accounts as well. So none of the structure will come through. Risk and controls will all come through, but sign-offs won't do. And that's the same for the tailoring and the responses in the checklists. Okay. So that should have been enough chat for us to go back into the file then. And then we can see this file's created. And as we scroll down, you can see, okay, there's no sign-offs on any of the documents. But what we can see there is that we have got the custom documents for my walkthrough testing. I have got my custom analytical review document. I'm not necessarily saying that you'd want that in there, but potentially maybe if it's a template, fantastic. And as you scroll down there, we can see if I minimize these as well, we can see all those schedules that have been built in. I don't have the work programs there yet. I haven't got the work programs there yet because I haven't inputted any data, so financial data, and I haven't set up my materiality schedule. So you're not going to see those work programs come through until I had to update those. Just to prove that, I was going to go through and show hidden items. And then from hidden items, you can see those work programs lurking in the background. So they are still there. Just as a quick point out, this is this bulk actions option that I said was one of the new items that we're going to discuss later. So on that what's new slide I showed you earlier. So we will be coming back to this later as well. I'm also going to look at this as well, because from one of the pre-submitted questions, this is going to be quite useful for flagging up any documents that have been modified since last sign off. Okay, so you can turn this off. And let's look at another feature of copying data from a source engagement. So that was creating a file. And as I said, there's some limitations there. It doesn't bring in the sign-offs or the data. But from data now, what you will all have available to you is to select data from an engagement file. So what this will allow you to do is copy data, trial balance data, including financial data from that chart of accounts into any file that you like. So there's a couple of use cases for this, which you're really going to focus on. If I click on engagement file here, the first one is going to be, okay, well, we're using Iris or we're using CCH, and we've got our chart of accounts that we use to prepare all the financial statements that we obviously complete the audits on. Well, in that case, then what we can do is we can set up an entity. What did I call this earlier? Accounting. There we go. Okay, I forgot a very important tick box, which is the search all entities option on the right side. I'm sure most of you saw that and saw that I didn't tick it. And yeah, so a bit more on the board than me today. So you can see here, I've got my accounting software entity that I've also got a file that's got that chart of accounts in. So what I could do is I could select this file and I could import that chart of accounts from that accounting software. And then that way I've got that framework to import my TB with the financial data over it, but with the benefit of Caseware already knowing that sales is sales and where it should be going in the Caseware chart of accounts. Okay, so that's one use case you've got for all this. So file efficiencies, creating and setting up files, which is fantastic. What it's also there for is for looking at a single TB effectively. It's the starting framework of a single TB within the cloud. So what I could have here is say this file here could be my accounting software, my financial statements to prepare my FinStats. And this one up here is to prepare my audit. Well, what I want to do is I want to take this trial balance from this file and I want to import it into this file. You can obviously select any other file that you've got selected there as well. And if I go through here, you can see that I've got a couple of test files here that we can select that will do the same thing. So in that in mind, I'm not sure if we've got TV data in this one. Let's just double check. We should do. Yeah, there we go. I'm going to use this file as the starting point. Okay, so that's that file too. I'm going to say this is then the audit. The one I'm creating is financial statements. I can click that. I can tick the sync trial balance as well up here. And what that will do is, as and when there's any changes within file 2, it will automatically push those into this new audit file that we've created, which is a fantastic little feature. There are enhancements coming for this as well. So for a push button, for a log of changes and bits and pieces like that. So you'll see the functionality expanded over the upcoming updates that Caseware release. I'm going to link it like this now, and I'm going to select my file 2 and click on confirm. And at that stage, then what it's going to do is going to take that trial balance data in its entirety, including charts of accounts, and bring it into my file. The benefit there then is that I don't need to go to my assign accounts, and I don't need to assign anything because they're already assigned in exactly the right spot, meaning that I can get on with the actual work and start preparing other areas of my audit file. Okay, so hopefully you can all see a benefit from those two features there, which is creating a file from a source engagement and also populating financial data from a source engagement as well. They're available on the company audit templates for UK and Ireland, and all those features will be expanded for all the other audit templates as and when those updates are released, which again, most templates will be updated by the end of September this year, including LLPs, charities, academies, and so on. Okay. All right. So at this stage, then, let's have a look at the data. So that's the next area I wanted to have a look at with you, just to get some efficiencies within the data screen. Now, I'm going to stick in this file here because I'm going to come back to this one later. It means that if there's any questions, you want me to show you anything in there, we can do what we like. So let me go back to my documents here quickly. you've got is your prelim analytical review. Yeah. Within this prelim analytical review, you can put your key findings, but there's a lovely analysis tab over here, which gives you all this data and all these graphics showing, again, giving us some insight into key findings. Now, that's not really a traditional analytical review, though, where we're looking at current year, prior year comparatives. And that's where we can really start taking advantage of this data screen. So we've got accounts and financial groups. They're both quite similar, to be honest. By the way, it does also note, I'll give you a little note up here to say that this is linked to the webinar file too. So if there's any changes here, they will flow into this file. So that's a nice little bit signposted. But back to the point, we've got this trial balance data. Now, within here, the main differences between accounts and financial groups is the financial groups will allocate it within financial statement areas. So we'll have our tangible fixed assets, our current assets, our stocks, debtors, whereas accounts here will just give us our TB. With this, though, what we can do is, in both cases, is start building in variance columns. The variance columns will tell us the difference between those accounts and that percentage change. We can go through and also add in filters. So if we were looking at materiality, so let's just go through and add in some materiality quickly. By the way, in the release notes to the template, which the release notes you can find by looking at our Pendo in application help, there's product updates in here, which will talk you through some of the changes on the materiality schedule as well. So have a look at product updates, and it's going to be this one that you want to look at here. And you can go through and get more detail by the updates by clicking on here. Effectively, though, let's go through and say, well, our revised materiality here, we'll just leave that as 117852, and performance materiality. Ooh, first sign, I know I signposted this to you earlier that we're working on, not on the client bank, so we may get some bits and pieces like this pop up, but don't worry about these. You won't be seeing these error messages on your own audit engagement. It's because, unfortunately, I'm not on the client server for today. So on this side, then you set your materiality, and once you set your materiality, ignore the warnings messages, unfortunately, for today. And what I wanted to do is activate indicators, which is these ones over here, which doesn't look like it's going to be adding in on the screen, but try this on your own machines, okay? When you do it on your own machine, what you're going to get is an M indicator over here. I'll try and get this to populate on another file, but if we're on the server, I'm more likely to have the same issue on the same server. But what you get is a little materiality indicator here for any balance that's above and below materiality, which is quite useful. So you can build in indicators to flag up areas that are material or not material. What you can also do on here is go to your filters and say, well, okay, I only want to look at balances above performance materiality. Performance materiality is 75. And then that will just show you all the areas that are above PM. What you can then also do is go, well, actually, we don't want to look at taxation. We don't want to look at directors. We really want to focus on income, debtors, and our banking cash. So then what Case will do is it will strip out the areas. Sorry, excuse me. It will strip out the areas for the non-material areas of the audit and only show you material areas and balances specific to what you're targeting. At that stage, what you've got on the right-hand side is an opportunity to do annotations. There is an option over here to use variances. Okay, so if you scroll down here, there's a variance option where you can choose different variances from either current planning balances and so on. I wouldn't recommend using that at this stage. What I would suggest you do is actually use the export option up here. The export option will export the information on the screen to CSV, and then we can load the CSV back into our documents manager, reference it as the B23-A or whatever, however we're going to reference it up. But the good thing about it is it does a lot of the setup for us, focusing on the material areas of the audit. It builds the variances in, variance percentage, and then we can actually start doing our work understanding the figures rather than spending a lot of time setting these schedules up. Also, these are nice and static. As you can see, they're not linked back to the TV. So that means you've always got a nice static point of when we did that analytical review. Whereas the other screen I showed you earlier, that screen will update based upon any adjustments we posted in, which may be absolutely fine. That's obviously got value as well. However, I don't want to be looking at annotations and notes on analytical review if potentially those balances have been updated because we've had a new client TV in or something like that. So a couple of options there for you within that account screen. And just to show you as well, we've also got the same thing within financial groups. We don't have the filter in financial groups, but you still have the option to go through and say, okay, we want to look at variances. We want to have a look at materiality indicators and stuff like that, which again, you get the little material icon down the side here. You can just see where those figures just push out to the left, can't you? So you can see roughly where that symbol is going to fit in. What I'll do on the Q&A document is add a screenshot of this screen, but with the materiality balances indicators populating how they should do. All right, so let's move on to the next section then. So from that part, what we want to do, let me just go back to the slides quickly and flag those up on screen for you. Here we go. And that's side. So creating a file, source engagement, working with data. Hopefully you can see the benefits there. Got a few tips on how you can get some more efficiencies. Sampling plans. This is quite a new area. I think for us, there was a lot of changes that have been built in from the latest release from Mercia. There's a lovely new statistical sampling plan, and there's an updated judgmental sampling plan, which I'm sure you will all like to get your hands on. So let's go into a file and show you where they. And there we go. I pressed the wrong button there on the Zoom control. I'm sure Tom is laughing away. Right, so we should be back into our file now. This one I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into this webinar file too. Okay. Actually, this has got the materiality populated here, so maybe just as a quick, there we go. That's what you should be expecting to see when you see when you activate the materiality indicators, that little M symbol. Okay, so apologies, it wasn't working on the other file a moment ago. Now, back into this side again. Let's go to our documents, and there's a few extra areas in here, and I'm going to talk about the new bits. If you're looking at this partner manager summary, we're going to talk about that a bit later. If I go down to sampling here, this is the new judgmental document. There's also statistical, and that is there, but it's hidden. So let me just show you quickly. And I'm just going to override that. So there we go. That it's no longer hidden. So I'll show that. And let's turn off these hidden items. All right. So this is the judgmental one and statistical. So let's have a quick look at the statistical one. Very similar at the top of it. Okay, so you can then say, well, what the engagement is. You can create as many of these as you want from the new button at the top. Use parent materiality values. Well, this is a single entity audit, so no. What's the area? Well, we want to look at our bank and cash. Okay, what's the area on the trial balance? Okay, we want specifically to look at this deposit account or that bank account or just cash at bank in general. We can select the relevant assertions to this area. Definition, expectation of error. There's a nice little guidance area that's been built into these on the left-hand side, which explains what they are. What you'll also notice, if you've already seen case for sampling plans for Mercia before, what they didn't have on the right-hand side of these lovely little annotation options that are built in. So now what you can do is you can build notes on every single row of the sampling plan, obviously to build up the story and meaning behind this schedule. Source of test sample, stratification appropriate, yes or no. And then you can see the values automatically populating from the TB. Options for what type of method of sampling we're going to be choosing. And then as we go down there, what it does is it calculates the value of the residual population and it creates a confidence factor. And this confidence factor is based upon the risk assessment that we've included and the deductions below. So it gives you this little confidence factor table, which tells you, okay, well, if the material risk is low, then, well, it's a weak confidence factor and so on. So it gets a bit more information. Have a little go at this yourself, put some real figures through it. And again, any comments or questions, feel free to reach back out to us at Caseware for us to give you a bit of guidance on how to use these. But hopefully everyone will see that it's nice to have a new option from Mercia to start looking at sampling plans. Now, as I mentioned, though, we've also got changes on the judgmental one. So I'm going to jump into the judgmental one. New reference of JSSF. This one I've completed ready for the session today, so you can see a little bit more on screen. On for this one, what we can see is, again, it's linked into the area of terms fixed assets. We can then select these assertions. So these assertions are actually the assertions that were being selected at the risk assessment. So these are the assertions we've said are the key assertions or relevant assertions for this financial statement area. And then we can again go through and say, actually, what are relevant for the sampling? So we can then manually tick these to select them. And if we want to, we can build up our reasoning using the annotation option on the right side. Down below this, Is stratification appropriate? Yes or no? That hasn't changed. But what has changed as we go down a little bit further is that we can say whether we're using performance materiality or another figure for our tolerant misstatement level. Now, if we do change these and update these, what we can also do, and by the way, it's 90,000. The reason why I get this warning here is because my performance materiality is actually 88,000. And again, it says cannot be greater than performance materiality. And unfortunately, in this case, it is greater. So it's a nice example of error checking being built into files for you. You've got justification for using that though. And again, you can see, again, you can build that justification in. Underneath this, we've also got our initial sample size. Now, this has always been often a question when we're looking at sample sizes, why we start at 60. Sometimes 60 isn't appropriate for the population that we're working on, and it can leave us with really large sample sizes when actually it could lead to potentially maybe 100% testing in some cases, depending on what area we're looking at. So now what you've got is an opportunity to build in some of your own experience and expertise into this. And what you can say to this is actually, well, we want to start off with a different sample size. In this case, we want to start off with a sample size of 55. And there's many reasons behind this. And those reasons we will put into our justification field below it to explain why we're choosing that smaller starting point. The rest of it underneath is still exactly the same. So we've got our deduction tables where we can say whether we've got low risk up to high risk. Plan reliance on internal controls. Well, this will just be left blank because in most cases we're not testing controls. I know some firms are now, and if you are, obviously that you can get a further deduction if you are testing controls. Now, if you still said that, okay, well, this is still a bit high, then what you can do is also update these. So is the total number of items to be examined appropriate? Again, it provides you some guidance over here. If no, provides that what's appropriate. So at that stage, you can say, well, no, it's not. And then you can manually change the revised amount and again, put justification in why we're choosing that revised amount. So now when we have those conversations with partners and they're saying, okay, well, actually, that's a little bit too much, we're going to be over auditing there, we can now put some reasoning behind why we're modifying those sample sizes, which again is going to bring a lot of value to these documentation. Okay, so that's our sample sizes. I'm not sure if we've got any questions in yet, Tom. If we have, probably not a bad time to jump in.
Thanks, Tony. So we did have a question that sort of answered quietly, but I'll read it out. And it was right at the very beginning of the session, actually, when you were demonstrating creating a file based on an engagement based on an existing file. And the question was, I assume this roll forward would work better for new clients, or that method would work better for new clients as you would just roll forward the prior engagement file for existing clients. So I think that question was asked and answered in that, yes, it would be that method would be for if you were creating an engagement for a new client and you wanted to base it on an engagement that you'd prepared for somebody else.
Absolutely.
You would create next period's file, use the option to create next period's file if you're rolling forward an existing engagement.
I think some firms may want to use that for existing files, potentially maybe in year two or for a clean slate, but I'd say 99.9% of the case, yeah, it's going to be for new files that we create rather than for existing files. So yeah, definitely do use the roll forward options and save you a bit of time on existing files. Thanks for that, Tom.
We have got a couple of questions to do with reviewing and checking documents or working with documents. Perhaps we'll save those for the end of the content, or
save those for a moment, because what we're going to do first of all is we're going to jump into this PMSE document, so I can show you that, because that's going to cover some review elements, and then we're going to move on to some of the review tools as well. So yeah, save those up and then jump in as it went on. Thank you very, very much. All right. So in that case then, what we'll do, let's jump into this new documentation, the new review tool. Now, it just scrolls down automatically, doesn't it? Always forget that. So back up to the top. This is the PMSD Partner Manager Summary document. It's a new utility that's been added in with the release. Now, within here, once you click on it, there is a sign-off for this. Now, I don't particularly see the need to have a sign-off in this document. It's a review tool, utility to kind of steer us to areas maybe there's issues. There is a sign-off prepared by up to RI. If you, as a firm, don't want to have those sign-offs, then you can just go to edit properties on a file-by-file basis or on a template and turn off the sign-off scheme. It's completely up to you if you sign that off or not. It's not a Mercia document at all. But when you go into it, what it does is it's got a few key areas: the planning area, the risk assessment area, through to completion. There's a document map on the left-hand side for us to jump to any of the sections within it, which is quite handy. But what it'll do, and I'm going to keep that shrunk for the time being so you get more real estate on the screen. What it'll do at the start, let's look at planning. It's going to go through and populate with financial areas like these. So automatically, when you first open it up, it's going to give you a bit of an analytical review. I'm not too sure if I would want this at this stage, but it could be useful to have, again, to have some key areas flagged up for a partner manager review outside of the A71 final analytical and the B23, that planning analytical review. However, you can also turn them off if you don't want to see those. Underneath that, you're going to get your overall engagement information. This is a nice overview of those tailoring questions. So is it a new client? And as you all know from using the audit of the Cloud Audit application, these are responsible for a lot of optimization within your file. So stripping out areas of the planning checklist that just aren't relevant because you're not part of a group or because it's a new client and so on. So it's a nice, useful tool to review those. It's also got this documents requiring specific role sets. Now, this I really do like. When you start off in a file, actually it doesn't start off with this view, it starts off with this view. So it just shows you if these are in progress or if they've been completed. So for the planning stage, then this is just telling me that there's some key documents here that RIs have to sign off that haven't been signed off yet. And you can see that I've done my work, someone else has come in and reviewed, and then Tom's come through and done a manager review, but the partner hasn't signed off these documents yet. Okay, so it isn't just limited to the documents that we set up. So if I jump back into the documents manager here, I'm going to change one of the settings on, say, what did we have there? The audit strategy is already in. So let's go through and build in. The partner also wants to sign off maybe the B11. Okay. So on this side here, you can see the RI's on it. Now, if you went down to the B14, the RI's signature isn't on it. So I'm just going to go through to the three dot button, edit properties, and I'm going to change that to an RI sign off. So you can see the indicators updated. Now I've got an RI review on it. If I go back into this, then it needs to be refreshed. Okay, it won't automatically update. But what we should be seeing, and we go in there, that these documents that have got a modified sign-off role will then be updated to be included within this thing. So now we can see the B14 on there as well. So when we set this up, it's going to be a really handy document for RIs and managers, but more so for really RIs to see exactly what their footprint should be as the minimum by Mercia, but also those additional sign-offs of areas that you want to put your footprint on outside of those minimum documents from Mercia. And it'll give you a nice complete document of all the areas that you signed off, which is fantastic. Risk assessment will give you a highlight of all the risks that you've signed on your file. So it's okay, we've got 19 risks, 10 significant. It doesn't let you drill in here, but it obviously gives you the link to the risk assessment or the risk report to see exactly what those 19 risks are. Control report, exactly the same. 11 key controls there to 10 significant risks that we've identified. Underneath this, it gives us a overview of the planned audit response. There's a bit of work that is going to be still needs to be carried out on this to make it a little bit easier on the eyes. But effectively what it will do is it will tell us where we've got risks identified and what approach we wanted to take for analytical review for these particular areas or work programs. So whether we want to do analytical procedures and what assertions we want to cover for each type of those audit tests, which is quite handy. The field work, again, will show you areas that, again, quite key. Let this load up. Hopefully it does load it up again, remembering I'm not on the client server. When it loads up on yours, what this is going to flag up for you is procedures in work programs that potentially are going to flag up that actually have we done enough work, or then just not the appropriate answer. So it gives us a little bit more of a completeness check whilst looking at quality, which is fantastic.
While we wait for this to load, we've got a couple of questions relating to the PMSD. Excuse me. So first question is, we don't have the PMSD on our files. Do we need to switch it on somehow?
Well, first of all, if you've already created a file, okay, so if this webinar file one is kind of me preempting this question. This is based upon an older version of the template, okay? So when I open this one up, I don't get this PMSD. If I go to hidden items and show hidden items, there's no PMSD there. The version number for this one is 2.711, which is an older version of what we're currently working on. This version here and the version that you want to be working on, well, that's not the right one. My button about, there we go, is version 2.1060. And to get hold of that PMSD, what we do need to be working on is the latest version of the caseware template. Any new file you create from this template's released, you'll have availability for that PMSD. If you're working on a file that was created prior to this template being released, then you're not going to have availability for that PMSD in this audit assignment. Unfortunately, there's not an update files in progress yet. And that will be coming in Q2, I believe, next year, where we'll be able to add updates from documentation for files in progress, which, as you can imagine, is quite essential for financial reporting. So currently, if you've already created the file, you're not going to have access to the PMSD in that engagement. You need to create a new file based upon this template. And a quick side note there, if you're working with a custom template, you'll need to have your admin check that the custom template has been updated to pull in the changes from this. If anyone wants any information on how to update your custom template, bung something into the chat field and we'll make sure there's something available in the release notes, not release notes, Q&A document.
Thanks, Tony. Just a very quick one, again on PMSD. Will the RI sign-off in the PMSD be limited to just caseware documents, or can external docs be included for RI sign-off?
Yeah, so on this side, then let's go to this documents manager, and this is in that same file, and we have got an Excel file. There we go. This one, the analytical review. The partner wants to have a look at the analytical review, so you go through and change it to ROI sign-off, press save, go back into my PMSD. So let me scroll back up and open this one up. So let's look at the planning. So when we're on here, then can you see you've got the B23-1 analytical review? That's populated on that list now. So no, to answer the question, I know I took a long-winded way about it, but Excel schedules, PDFs, anything that you put that RI sign-off onto will populate within this list. It isn't essential that it has to be a caseware checklist or Word program or anything like those. So yeah, good question there. Thank you very much for that. Tony. All right, so fieldwork-wise then, this is having a bit of a problem loading on my side. So let me jump into and show you exactly what that's relating to. Okay, what they've done within the Word programs, and we'll look at our debtors here. I'll open that debtors up, is they've changed the response types in it. So again, you're going to notice them when you roll forward your files and you update them or you create new engagements. There's an ART table that's just loading up at the top, and I'll come, well, whilst we're here, I'll just come back to this later when it's loaded, but you can see what this is actually linking to is our risk assessment report. We'll come back to this in a moment, okay? But as I scroll down here, can you see they all say completed? Whereas the old style procedures that you're maybe more used to actually has an input field here to put our conclusion in. Whereas now, for any new procedures in here, what you've got is completed with exceptions, and unable to complete. So completed with exceptions is a yes, it's complete, but. So we can then go through and put the but down here within the work done section to expand upon that. Unable to complete, again, we can go through and say, why is it unable to complete? Is it just because it's not relevant? Is it because we haven't got the information from the clients and areas like that? However, if you select either of these two here, these would be a flag for documents with non-optimal answers. And non-optimal answers are effectively saying, like, do we need to do some more work here? So it's a nice way of flagging that up within this PMSD document. I'd love to show you this, but unfortunately it's not loaded right now. But it is loading on client servers and working without any bugs or faults. But unfortunately, I'm just not on a client server today. So hopefully you get, again, some value from that, because that's going to steer you in areas that aren't complete and that may be affecting file quality. Under here as well, can you see I've got my couple of work programs? These are work programs that I've assigned an RI sign off to, because again, their key area is the audit. The RA wants a footprint on these and they want the sign off. So it's not on every single work program, but these two work programs here have got that RI sign off, which we can see here that hasn't been completed yet. Okay, so be cautious of time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on completion because a lot of it will be the same. However, there's an override of visibility. This is letting you know if anyone's gone through to any of these documents outside of the optimization and clicked on the eyeball and said hide. Okay, so that will flag up any documents that we've manually overridden and hidden. So the hardest thing to review on the audit file is what we can't see. This here is an issues tracker. Now, I only have one issue on this file, but one of the pre-submitted questions was about allocating issues to people or being able to look at issues on a user case. So if I was a reviewer here, I could then go through to filter. I could search for all review issues, when they were raised and who raised them. And obviously, if you're a manager or partner, you're going to be very concerned to make sure that your issues are all cleared down and completed, and set up nice and tidy and file. So this PMSD report is going to be able to let you look at your review points that you've raised, and make sure that they're complete. Those enhancements, by the way, are also going to be added to this issue screen, but they're not available yet, but will be coming within future updates, okay, where we can select by user as well. All right, audit response tables, bulk actions. I'm going to go to bulk actions next, okay, because one, this is a nice quick win. Moving documents came up as one of pre-submitted questions and the way to do it. Previously, you had to go down to the document and say, okay, I want this to be down in the planning section. So you go to the three dots over here and you click on move and you follow the instructions and move that individual document. Now what you've got is bulk actions. So if there's multiple documents, so let's use our Excel documents over here as an example, I can now go to bulk actions. I can select the ones I want to move, and I've got to move documents over here. Or I can now move those documents into any area in the same method you'd move an individual one, but multiple documents. Okay, so that's a new feature that's come in. I'd probably find that quite helpful for the documents you receive from the client information requests to make sure they're batched and moved in the right area. What you can also see is that you could sign off documents. If you go through and sign off documents that potentially maybe aren't complete, I'm not sure exactly what's on these ones, but let's see if we can sign these ones off all as a manager review. If there's areas that can't be completed, the following documents cannot be signed off. It will tell you why. But also, if you select other documents that maybe haven't been fully completed, let's try some of these ones. And we'll do the RI review on this one. What it will also do is it will tell you if there's any procedures outstanding on them. So, okay, there's one procedure outstanding on the B01. Well, that's a nice position to be in, because actually that is the RI conclusion at the bottom of the planning checklist. However, we still want to have a little look at that, don't we? So let's have a quick look at review tools. So I'm going to turn the bulk actions off, and I'm going to go into the planning checklist here. So review tools have been enhanced, okay? First thing is they're activated from this icon, turn on review tools. And what you'll see now as you scan down is that you'll get indicators on the right-hand side of areas that haven't been complete. So can you see over here, there's an indicator to say, well, it hasn't been signed off. So again, an indicator here now. But you can also cycle through these from all these using this, clicking on this button, we'll be able to cycle through and it will navigate you down to the right area. So just to demonstrate that quickly, review tools, and over here, it'll actually navigate you through, which is quite a handy little feature. So do click on these little icons to navigate through the file. Back into the work program, review tools. Again, here we go. We'll also show you things like visibility settings. Have they been overridden? Again, so we've expanded these now to add in another indicator to let you know that someone's manually overridden to show something, which is quite useful for when you're doing your review. Again, you can cycle through the areas that haven't been completed. Okay, so this is the ART table at the top. So the ART table, there is a sign-off option on the right side over here. If I just zoom out a little bit, there we go. We can see it hasn't been signed off. One of the questions previously, I'm just going to jump back into the planning checklist. One of the pre-submitted ones was, okay, well, what if these documents have been modified? You get this little indicator here to let you know that this document's changed, and then it flags up what's been changed here. Fantastic. But is there an easier way to, rather than going in every single document, to see those changes? And if you go to the documents manager over here, and you go to the three-dot more actions button, there's a modified since last review option, which will show you all the documents that have been modified since that last person signed it off. I think this for a review is really essential that we're turning on when we're reviewing files, because it flags up those areas, and the system's designed to be flexible so we can get on with work. However, you also need to be confident in saying that that schedule that you signed off was what you signed off and the changes have been made to it. So please do turn that on to navigate through the other areas. Okay. Unfortunately, really, that's all I'm going to have time for today. So I'll have a quick round through. So PMSD, there's more information on the guidance buttons I showed you. Do have a look into it. There's lots in there that could be useful. And remember, you can tailor it. The ART tables, and this is something that I found really useful, was there's linkages now. Previously, we had to go through and set our assertions on the B40 and in the risk assessment independently. Well, now what we don't actually set them on the B40 anymore. The assertions will all be set within our risk assessment area. They will feed onto our B40 document, but they also feed up here, which is quite nice. So do take a look at those side as well. Bulk actions, we had a bit of time to look through. That was moving, deleting, signing off documents. And again, it will flag up areas that aren't complete. Fantastic. Review tools, there's a new option there to cycle through. And there's also expanded information on the screen there as well about modification and new layouts for indicators. I know that's very small, but you can see that little warning triangle there. New functionality. I was just looking at this very, very close to me to say, so I'm just going to just quickly jump in because I have just got enough time to show you this one here. One of the areas on here for partners, managers, and anyone is actually, well, I want to be able to sign off documents, and potentially maybe there's multiple people that want to sign off as prepared, or multiple managers maybe need to review certain elements of a file. There's a new option now that will allow multiple people to sign these off. You need to activate it, but from the information button up here, you've got settings. Okay. There's more information on the release notes. So if this is of interest to you and if there'll be a real value, then what you can do is you can go down to roles and you can tick these boxes here. So for RI sign off or multiple sign off here. So effectively, if you wanted to, then rather than modifying the settings on each of the documents, if a partner comes in, but you've only got a schedule that's prepared by, reviewed by, and that's got a sign off for manager review, what the RI could also do is sign off at the manager level as well, just to make sure that they're stamped their footprints on that document. So this is quite a nice little feature that was added in as well. So multiple sign-offs, which again, if Tom was to log into this file, it just means Tom would be able to go through and sign this off as well as myself as prepared by. Okay. All right. So that is all I've got time for today. So I know there's other questions that have come in, and I know there's some pre-submitted ones as well. So we'll make sure that we get some answers back to you on those and make available with the recording and the QA document.
That's right. So thanks, Tony. We have got some questions that have come in that we haven't had a chance to answer around updating. So the template update, looking at issues, looking at queries, exporting, that kind of thing. We will cover all of those in the Q&A document, which will go out in the next day or so. But I'm just going to very quickly go through the wrap up because I'm conscious that we're slightly over. So if we can just jump to the next slide there, you can continue to submit your questions while we do this wrap up, by the way, and we'll just get back to you afterwards. As you can see there, as you may have done for today, you can go to this rather snappy URL, which is caseware.com/UK/resources/events, and you'll see our webinars and the agendas and the option there to register to attend. We signpost those our webinars and other news within the business on our LinkedIn page. That's Client Services Caseware UK. And we also have our YouTube channel. If you subscribe there, set your notifications, we'll let you know when new videos are posted, including recordings of webinars, but also snappier quick vids for specific topics. We are time stamping our webinars, so you don't need to scrub through a 45 minutes to find the bit that you wanted. There will be links for timestamps for the bit that you need. On the next slide, we have a link to our help site, which we are still currently using, help.caseware.co.uk. That's where you can find articles and quick vids and webinar recordings and all sorts of things. We are in the process of transitioning to a new knowledge base. When we do that, when that's completed, this link here will automatically redirect to the new site. That's the end of the wrap up. Thank you very much for all of your questions and for attending. We hope you enjoyed the session today. Take care and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Tom.